operations with integers. Get mine out. Okay. So 0, 3. Would you mind grabbing the lights for me? Could you turn that light on for me, please? Okay.
What? That good?
Yeah, I should turn it off. Okay. So as I look at 0, 3, we are looking at operations with integers. Now this is kind of the section, the only section really in this, I think the whole class, that I'm going to say you cannot use calculators on. Other than this section, you can pretty much, maybe fractions. I might have retracted that statement. But this I don't want you, you'll see why I don't want you using a calculator on it, because you would just plug it in your calculator. But I want you actually thinking about it instead of just plugging it in your calculator. So this is just FYI. On the homework and stuff, I want you to be able to do it without a calculator. So as I look at 0, 3, first thing we're going to talk about, and we're dealing with integers. So if you think about classifying like we did yesterday, integers don't include what? Decimals or fractions. So we're dealing with integers, so we're not dealing with decimals or fractions. We can't have negatives, we can't have 0. So we're dealing with operations with integers. Operation is add, subtract, multiply, divide. Okay? So let's look at adding and subtracting. A few things to remember. You may have been taught something different in middle school. If that works for you, then do however you were taught. This is kind of the way I teach it. So first thing you want to do is look at the sign. If both are positive or negative, so if they both have the same sign, whether they're both negative or positive, you simply add and keep the same sign. So if both are the same, so you're going to look at the sign. If they're both the same, whether they're both positive or both negative, you add them and keep the sign. If one is negative, if they're different, so if one is negative and one is positive, you do what? I heard it somewhere. Maybe not. Subtract and keep the sign of the, what sign do I decide? Sign of the what? Bigger number. So this is what I'm saying. If you were taught a different way to do this, use however way you were taught. That is fine. I'm not going to be picking and say you have to do it my way. If you have a way that works for you, that's fine. And then remember, if two negatives are next to each other, they become a positive. Okay? So let's look at some adding and subtracting examples. This is why I don't want you to use a calculator, because I want you to do it in your head and not just plug it in a calculator. So -2 plus 3. So look at the signs. If I look at the signs, are they the same or different? One's a negative, one's a positive. So I'm going to subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number. So what's 3 minus 2? 1. And the bigger number is what? Positive. So it's a positive 1. Okay, if I look at B, this is a little different because you see a plus and you see a negative. But as I look at the signs, both of these numbers are what? Negative. Since they are both negative, you do what? Add. They're both the same. You add and keep the same symbol. So 15 plus 4, and you keep the negative. So if they are the same, you add, keep the sign. Okay, 11 minus 15. As I look at this, look at your sign. Are they the same or different? What's the sign of this 11? Positive. If there's nothing there, it's a positive. So this is a positive, this is a negative 15. So I'm going to do what with them? Subtract. So 15 minus 11? 4. Keep the sign of the bigger number, which is the negative 15. So negative 4. Okay, if I look at D, negative 11 plus negative 7, the signs are both negative. Since they are the same, I do what? Add, keep their sign. So 11 plus 7 is 18. Keep the negative, negative 18. Okay, let's look at E real quick. 18 minus 23. Two different signs. This is a positive 18, so I subtract them. What's 23 minus 8? 5. And then the bigger number is negative, so it's a negative 5. So some of you guys are like, I'm good with this. Some of you guys might struggle with it, which is fine. There's different things we're good at and we're not good at. Let's look at another example. Let me add F real quick. What if I had 8 minus a negative 10? So just the negative, negative. If you have a negative next to a negative, that makes them both positive. So it becomes plus, plus. So 8 plus 10, 18. So just an example like that. We good with this? Okay, this is the nice thing about year-long Algebra 1. We don't have to rush through stuff. So we're going to spend a day talking about integers because we can. So we don't have to, if it's easy I'd rather it be easy for you than me go too fast and you guys be like, I don't understand this. Because it will come back and bite you in the butt if you don't know this stuff super well. Okay, multiplying, dividing. If I look at multiplying and dividing, we still need to look at the signs. If both are positive or negative, so if they are the same, so if they have the same sign, so if both are positive or both are negative, then the answer is always positive. It's a little different. The nice thing about multiply and divide is you do whatever it tells you to do. Whether you divide or multiply, that's what you do. You just have to look at your signs to see what your final answer will be. If one is positive and one is negative, so if they're two different signs, then the answer is always negative. But the operation doesn't change. So you don't like add it or subtract it. You don't change it. You do whatever it tells you to do. You just have to look at the sign. So if I look at example 2, we're multiplying and dividing. So negative 9 times 4. We are multiplying. So we go ahead and multiply. What's 9 times 4?
36.
And these are two different signs. So my answer is negative. If you have two different signs, the answer is always negative. If you have the same sign, it's positive. Okay, negative 112 divided by negative 8. Now, I'm not going to let you use a calculator, so we're going to have to use long division, which is fine. 112 divided by 8. Now, I'm not even going to throw the negative in there because I know my answer is going to be what?
Negative.
No. Positive, because there's a negative divided by negative. So you don't really have to worry about putting the signs in there because I know my answer is positive because they're both negative. So long division, let's see what we can do here. It's been a while. How many times does 8 go into 11? Once, so I put a 1 there. Bring down the 8. 1 times 8 is 8. I bring it down. I do what with them? 11 minus 8? 3. Bring down the 3. Bring down the 2. How many times does 8 go into 32? 4. So my answer is 14. Positive because there are two negatives being divided. Normally I would say just plug it in your calculator, but today I want you to actually do it with that one. Okay, part C. Negative times a negative. So they're the same sign, so my answer is going to be positive. And then what's 11 times 11? 121. So a positive 121. And then the last one, 96 divided by a negative 6. First of all, my answer is going to be what? Negative, because there's two different signs, positive and a negative, two different signs. My answer will be a negative. So if I do long division again, I don't have to worry about the sign necessarily, because just by looking at it, I know my answer is negative. How many whole times does 6 go into 9? Once. 1 times 6? 6. Subtract, bring down the 3, bring down the 6. How many whole times does 6 go into 36? 6. So negative 16 is your answer. Okay, we were good with this stuff? Yeah, maybe sort of. Okay. If you're struggling with it, that is fine. Every year I have some kids that struggle with integers, and that's why we do it again. Kind of a refresher. So not many notes.